welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. Today, it's just me and you guys and gals talking about Synthesis Prime, working on those primary archetypes within ourselves. And, just a special show, no guests, nobody on the phone, nobody in the studio except me and you, my loyal listeners. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for joining us on the Facebook live stream and on Talkradio.nyc. And I also just want to mention, if you're listening to this, whether you're listening to this live or are you listening to the podcast or the restream, if you want to know what the upcoming topics is on the shows, please join our newsletter. There's a sign-up form on the main page. Just go to talkradio.nyc and scroll down, put your name and email address in and get added to the newsletter so that this way you can be apprised of, what are the latest topics for the shows coming up in the next couple of days and that week. We also put in local events that we feel are or apropos for our audience and that you might be interested in. So it really helps us if you join the newsletter, and I hope you'll consider doing that. Okay, so last segment we talked about the maternal archetype within us and the patterning that rules over and what that goes around. So after the relationship with our mother, our primary relationship of the maternal archetype, the next relationship is with the father, the paternal archetype. And again, I'm going from a very Western point of view. And so what does that archetype represent to us? Who is the father? The father is typically the disciplinarian. And the father is also seen for centuries as the person who brings the kill home, the food home, the person who is responsible for feeding the family, which in modern times translates to earning the paycheck, making money, taking care of the finances, things like that. And so because of that relationship, the patterning within our psyches is that the father archetype, the paternal archetype, rules over all kinds of things related to that. So that's all about money, success, business, career, finance, survival they both kind of share, but around these sort of very physical things. So when you look at sort of your relationship to those aspects in your life, your relationship to money, your relationship to career, business, finance, there may be some similarities to your relationship to the father archetype within you, or to your father, or whoever held that position when you were a little child. Who was that father figure for you? For some single parent families, that the mother was both the mother and the father, or the father was both the mother and the father. It just depends. Whoever held that position for you. And so if we look at that relationship, think about it. Was the father distant? Is your relationship to money and success distant? Was the father very involved, very encouraging? Was the father figure brutal? Was the father figure domineering, or was the father figure weak? What was your relationship with the father figure? Was it a loving relationship? Was it a tense relationship? Was it a stressful relationship? It's amazing how many people who get really stressed over their jobs and over money, how their relationship with that father figure, that there is some stress in that relationship. Now, again, keep in mind that when I talk about these different qualities involved in a relationship, it doesn't mean that the entire relationship is just completely dominated by that quality, but there are many qualities involved in relationships, and the quality might just even be a small piece of it, but it still has an effect. It still does something to us. So it doesn't mean the whole relationship was stressful, but if certain aspects of that relationship was stressful, then certain aspects of our relationship to money, success, career, finance, business is going to be stressful. If God forbid that the father or the father figure was abusive in the household, then is your relationship to money abusive? Do you use money in abusive ways, or do you think of money as abusive? Did you rebel against the way your parents were? So you rebel against these aspects. So maybe your father was very materialistic and very staunch, like there's money and there's nothing else, and you rebelled against that. So you went in the exact opposite direction, and you're just totally altruistic. You don't care about money. You're constantly giving money away. And so how is your relationship to money? Right? Either way, it can be out of balance. And that's the real key thing here. In talking about these relationships, the paternal and the maternal archetypes, it's about balance. It's about harmony. It's about bringing them together in a way that serves us. So, let's just say your relationship to your father figure in your life was not so great. Wonderful that you recognize that. Again, awareness is the first step to change. Now that you recognize that, what do you want it to be? Right? If you were to formulate the ideal father figure in your life, what would he look like? How would he have acted? What would his voice sound like? Sit down and just in your mind's eye conjure up these visual images of maybe even episodes in times past. Who knows? Maybe when you were a little kid and your father was real stingy with your allowance. So for some reason you're always struggling to get paid more money because you don't feel you're getting paid what you're worth. What would it look like if your father gave you an appropriate allowance for you at that age? Was your father encouraging in school, or was he always just expecting you to get better and better grades? Oh, you got a B minus. How come you didn't get a B or a B plus or an A minus? Was your father one of those people who always pushed you on to do better, but didn't really encourage you, just kind of criticized you for not doing better? Right? Do you feel critical of money? Do you feel critical of business and career, in your career and finance? Right? So how do we heal these different aspects? Well, it's always good to also take these aspects one at a time. Right? So maybe your relationship to money is okay, but somehow your relationship to the idea of having a job is not okay. So let's just focus on that. Or maybe you run your own business and the business does well, but somehow you don't have a lot of money in your pocket. So let's look at these different aspects. Let's sit down, right? Visualize, come up with all the juicy details. I always like to say when we visualize something, make it sexy, make it colorful, make it luscious, make it delicious. Engage those senses when you're visualizing. And then after we've taken all these sort of different aspects around money, career, finance, business, success, after visualizing it, let's put it down on paper. Let's make it physical. Write out the stories around it. Write out how you want the stories to be. What is your story around success for you? What does success look like for you? Again, success for you doesn't have to be success for anybody else. You don't have to be, a Branson or a Trump or an Elon Musk. Maybe for you success is being an amazing painter, or maybe success for you is having amazing friends. Whatever your definition is of success, make it unique, make it your own, and just know what it is. Write it out. Right? Write out all these stories you have around money, around, your father figure and the relationship to money and business and career. Right? Once you've written out, let's come up with some positive affirmations and let's put those into our exercise routine. Go walking and say those affirmations. Connect to your body in different ways and get it into your physical body. It's so, so important. Our nervous system is physical. Right? These patterns are in our bodies. They're not just in our minds. So it does take some effort. It does take movement to move the energies. I mean, even our emotions, right? I've heard it said over and over again. What is emotion? Emotion is energy in motion. And it's when these emotions get stuck in our body, there's not movement, that's when we have trouble. So let's look at what are our emotions around money and business and career. And let's get that moving. And then let's engage spirit. Let's meditate on it. Let's call upon our angels and spirit guides and teachers and whatever you believe in. Look, it doesn't matter. You don't have to follow my formula. Come up with your own. Actually, you come up with your own, it'll be more powerful for you. So whatever you believe in, if maybe it's just life or nature or, this image of God, whatever it is for you, call upon that. Ask for its help and meditate on what are all these meanings we put behind it and what do we want? What are the meanings we want to have behind it? What is the relationship we want to have to our jobs, to our careers, to our businesses? Is it one of overflowing abundance? Is it one of security? Is it one of maybe you don't want to be identified with your career or your business, but that's just something you do, and who you are as a person is something different. Great. How does that look to you? Do you want to be famous, infamous, or do you want to be little known but have plenty of resources at your disposal? Maybe you don't want a big bank account, but you want freedom to travel the world and just to live off the land, or to find ways to make money that give you the freedom to make money wherever you're at. So maybe you want to create a virtual business, and that's where you want to have your primary relationship. Great. Just know what that is. And use all these tools, get all the senses involved. The mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit. Get them all involved. So this paternal archetype, the archetype that rules over money. Again, I've done processes on this in the Conscious Business Collective. I've talked about it, and I have some energetic processes. Those audios will be available. Just contact me, and I will let you know how to get them when they come out in the future. And now, coming up in our final segment, all right, we've talked about the maternal archetype, the paternal archetype, synthesis prime. Synthesizing and aligning these two primary archetypes within our psyche so that we have a more enjoyable, happier, more fulfilled life. Coming up next.